welcome to another video in the opening strategy Overexplained series. And today we're going to talk about provoking weakening moves. Now, today our first example is again going to be an example from the Scandinavian. So after e takes, there is a line that goes with knight f6. And let's say white plays knight f3 here. So why do we play knight f3? Well, what are some reasons to play knight f3? First of all, many people might want to play the Portuguese variation, so with d4 bishop g4, the Portuguese gambit. So white plays f3 and the play continues from here. And with the move knight f3, you're actually preventing black from going into this line, but also you are kind of hoping for or inviting bishop to g4. Now it's not that bishop g4 is a bad move or a terrible move or anything, but why do you want to get the bishop to g4? It's so you can later hit it with h3 or g4. So that's one point. The other point is this pawn. Protecting it with c4 is not the best, but what you can do is develop naturally and normally and try to just make it a little bit harder for black to get the pawn back. So after bishop g4, what is our idea, like in some other lines of the Scandinavian, to go bishop b5, give this check. Since the pawn is on d5, it's harder to play c6. Most black players also wouldn't feel too comfortable, I think, with going back to d7 with the bishop. So the most popular line here is indeed knight d7. There's also c6, which I don't really think is that promising. Well, because you don't really... This knight, first of all, you might say it's good for black to develop, but first of all, this knight is pinned and black's pieces can get kicked around, so I don't really see the point. So most people here go knight d7. And we're not at the point yet where we're provoking weaknesses, but little by little you see we're making black's position a little bit more awkward. He has to spend some more moves to get this pawn back here, which is why now we are going to play, first of all, it's possible to first of all play h3, so that later at a good moment you can go to g4. And here, after bishop h5, go knight c3, and like I said, make it more difficult to get the pawn back. Now, after knight c3, a6 is expected, since black really wants this bishop gone, wants to get rid of this annoying pin, so black can go knight b6, pick up this pawn, which is securing a lot of space in black's camp. For example, right here, he can go e6, but that's not great. So it's kind of hindering black's development at the moment. So after bishop e2, covering also the knight and going just to a reasonable square, we have managed to misplace this knight, make black play a6, which is slightly weakening. You might say, well, what's the point? But you will see in a moment why that can matter. So knight b6, now castles, and you see white had to spend 1, 2, 3 tempi to pick up the pawn, and we immediately take out his developed knight. Black takes back. After d4, we don't want the knight we also don't want the knight to come to f4. So it's nice to develop our bishop, take a claim in the center. Also, e5 and c5 now are much harder to accomplish. So that was also a benefit of covering this knight, so that now if black plays e5, we can just take even with the knight. So after e6 here, now we kick out this knight with c4, and let's say after knight f6, here comes another part of our plan. This pawn is without protection, so here white can play queen b3, attacking this pawn and trying to make black trying to force black into creating another weakness. So here b6 is what black might try. And now it's time for g4 to kick this bishop, since b6 left a hole here and left his diagonal weak. So after this and this. Now in contrast, please note that here this will be silly, since our king is totally safe, since these two pieces are the only pieces by black that are developed. So these pieces here aren't playing at all. So maybe the queen can come in, maybe that's something to be aware of, but I don't really think black has any attack to speak of. So here so here queen a4 even, making use of this weakened diagonal. This is not pinned, but you see black just doesn't have time to organize any kind of attack. So g4 isn't that weakening, and after bishop g6 we can jump in with knight e5. Also giving us the option to, giving white the option to take out the bishop, but more importantly, threatening to jump in here. And after bishop d6, aiming to trade off the knight. Bishop f3, making use of this weakened diagonal. Black blocks it with bishop e4. And here you would have to do some calculation, this move and maybe the moves before. But here you can play queen f3, attacking this knight. There's no way this pawn can cover, since this square is under our control. So here black felt forced to take out the knight, and after this and knight c5, I think there is really no better square for the, queen d4 apparently was a try, but let's say knight c5. Now after queen to c6, this isn't a good idea, since white can take, which means that black has to play the weakening move queen e7, and you see it's already winning position, and you can play from here. So let me quickly walk you through how we got to this position. It might seem very logical, but I want you to pay attention to what white did here. So knight f3. We are kind of hoping black goes bishop g4, as he did in a lot of games, so we can kick him out later, win some time on this bishop, and so that when the bishop comes to g4, we have this check and this diagonal here, this diagonal here to work with. After bishop g4, obviously black doesn't have to do this, but it does make for a really interesting example to show it to you with these moves. So bishop b5, check, knight d7. The knight is a bit misplaced, and to get this pawn back, black has to spend some more tempi, which is good for white. So h3, we kick it, so we can always kick the bishop with g4 later. Knight c3, protecting the pawn, making it harder to get it back. a6, black wants to get rid of the pin. Bishop e2, again, prophylaxis, preventing any pin later, so that the knight can jump to, well, wherever it wants, probably e5, but g5 or d4 would be options also. Knight c6, castle, and after the knight takes, you see the knight made 3 jumps, only to be taken out immediately. And after knight takes d5, d4, e6, white wins another tempi, knight f6. White notices this weak pawn here, and after queen b3 trying to have black make a concession, and b6, this square on c6 is weak, this diagonal is weak, and you saw in the next moves how that could quickly become really annoying for black. And if you had calculated bishop e4 correctly, also notice that knight e4 walks into knight g6 and the knight here is lost. So bishop e4 is probably the best try, short of giving up the exchange, giving up the rook. Queen f3. So knight f6 allows for knight c6, and this knight is wonderful here on c6. It's very hard to chase it away. It takes a lot of space here, covers a lot of squares. So with b6, black also weakened, like I said, the square c6. But here black decided to go to c5. Your white played rook d1. I guess also a very decent move. But queen c6 I think is even stronger, since now we got the king on e7. And we have a really nice result from our opening play, where we combined logical moves, quick development, with threats to black's pieces, gaining tempi on the pieces also. And the outcome is that we could get black to weaken his position and jump with the queen to c6, making black lose castling rights and being really in a very dangerous situation here. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe or leave a comment, and I will see you maybe in one of the next ones.